The Abomination of Desolation has a lot of components, a lot of parts in it. It draws from a lot of messages. It starts with Genesis 3 and what man became. When he trusted that talking snake, he became bound to the snake. He became one with the snake. He became the unclean animal. That unclean animal, the snake that slithered on the ground, that spoke to him. That's what he was bound to. The unclean animal, the serpent. And he became bound to this animal in the sign that God saw him as an animal now, not as a son to him, was that he put animal skins on the man. So he didn't look like a son anymore. He looked like an animal because he was bound to the animal. He was an animal. He listened to the voice of that great serpent, that voice of instinct, that voice of fear. The first thing he became was fearful. It's the first thing he did after he died. It encompasses the temple. But it's not speaking to the edifice that man built. It's not speaking to the edifice that Solomon built or that Herod built. The temple. The abomination of desolation is speaking of the temple that Jesus talked about. He said, this isn't any temple. The real temple is my body. That's the real temple. Tear it down and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. Tear it down and God will rebuild it. In 3 days, God will raise me out of the ground. The temple is where God lived. Temple is the house where God dwelled. And the only true temple at the time when Jesus spoke these words were his own body, where God truly dwelled. God lived with him so that they became one. They were as one. I and the Father are one, not because I'm a God and he's a God, and we're the same God and just different personalities. Me and the Father are one. No, me is one. No. The Father and I are one. Because we're one in purpose, we're one in will. We're one because I choose to do his will and not my own will. I choose not to listen to the voice of that talking snake. I choose not to be bound to that unclean animal, as per Genesis 3. I choose to do what's different than all of the animals, all of humankind does. To not listen to that serpent in my thoughts. Not some God standing before me, talking to me, but that which was in my own thoughts. The temple was his body. And later, the temple, according to Paul, were the bodies of those who were like him, in whom God lived. The house of God. The house of God. Those who heard that word. Peter, who heard the word of the Father telling him who the Son was. In the bodies of those who were chosen to hear and to be able to see. Those who had ears to hear and eyes to see. The true temple were the bodies of those whom God inhabited. In the first century, when these events took place that were written about, that we have a record of. And Daniel talked about kingdoms. Daniel talked about the final kingdom being this kingdom made up of two parts, iron and clay. The political and the religious. The kingdom that would create this abomination when the world would become desolate of the truth that was known for a little while in this first century. The abomination that would cause the desolation of the truth from the world, cause the world to be desolate of that which those in the first century knew, understood about themselves, that God lived in them. The Son of God came back for them as He promised. He came back to live in them, with them. The Father and Himself came to live with them as He promised them in John 14. And that was good, because the Father is good, the Father is clean, the Son was clean. He wasn't an unclean animal.